Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight I have 3 true stories for you this spooky, scary Sunday. If you'd like to help this channel, subscribe, check out my merch and my Patreon. Turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. Turn right in 100 feet. A vehicle whizzed past me in the opposite direction, flashing their lights and honking their horns. I realized the voices in my head were now mimicking the stat nav in their effort to kill me. She was dead, and I didn't even know it. By Anonymous. About 5 years ago, I was living at home with my parents, and my twin brother was there too. Every morning at about 7 a.m., we both head out for a run. We had mapped out a giant loop that we would run. To make it a bit of a competition, I would run in one direction and my twin would run in the other direction. That way we could run and stay focused. Part of this loop was on the main street of the city my parents lived in. On this main street, there was these shady apartments kind of hidden by a bunch of trees. The direction I was running, the view of these apartments was obscured by a giant hedge bush, and I couldn't see the apartments until I was right in front of them. Out of my peripherals, I see a woman standing among the trees, staring at me. I immediately get the chills and do not turn to face her, because I didn't want to be rude. So I run on and forget about this a few minutes later. I pass my twin about 10 minutes later, and he's going the opposite direction as I. I get home, and my twin isn't back yet, so I go about the rest of my morning routine, including taking a shower. I get out of the shower, and my twin hasn't come back yet, and I'm starting to get a bit worried. An hour later, I had gotten home. He's still not back, and I called him. He tells me he's on his way back, and he has something he needs to tell me and my parents. He finally gets home and tells us he's running in front of these apartments. He saw a woman hanging from the tree in front of this apartment. As soon as it's obvious he's seen her, a man comes sprinting from the apartment, wailing and screaming, "No, I can't believe she did this!" and grabs her body and lays her on the ground and starts performing CPR. It's obvious he is her husband. My brother calls the local police and they dispatch an ambulance and police officers. My brother had to stay for questioning as a witness report and all that jazz. He is obviously troubled by it, since he is going the opposite way that I was running. He didn't have a hedge obscuring his view and got a straight-on view of this woman hanging there. It's still hard for me to believe that that woman I saw staring at me out of my peripherals was dead the entire time. I do find it very sketchy that the husband came running out as soon as it was obvious that someone had discovered the body. That's a bit too convenient if you ask me. But I don't want to say this man killed his wife without any evidence. My brother is never followed up with the police, leading me to believe this death was ruled a suicide. I still can't fathom that if I had just turned to face the woman, I would have discovered her about 20 minutes earlier than my twin had, and it deeply troubles me that I didn't. So before we continue, OP did send me photos of where this took place, so I'm just going to show those to you. So the first one is nothing on it, so you can kind of get an idea of what this place looked like. Now here's the second one, and you can see that he circled where the trees are and where he was running from. And yeah, I could see it being harder to kind of see a body in those trees, and also how it would be easier coming from the other direction to see it. So yeah, I get exactly why he didn't see, and I get why he didn't look either. So let's continue on our stories. I clutched the negative pregnancy test in my shaking hands. willing it to say something different. As I watched my swollen stomach contour and bulge in the shape of an unfamiliar limb, I had to accept that whatever was growing in me, it wasn't a baby. What the F are you looking at? By Fallout 69. Good night, everyone. I am a longtime fan/lurker and a first-time poster. This story is fresh, as it just happened a few minutes ago, but I will try my best to give you all the details. So, I'm a Pokemon Go player. I was a mild fan of the franchise as a kid, and now in my mid-20s, I find that it allows me to get out of the house more often and do something that doesn't involve, well, my house. If you have played the game, you know that there's these places called gyms, where you can place one of your Pokemon to earn you a max of 50 in-game coins per 24 hours. These coins can buy important in-game items as well as cosmetic items, and as you have guessed, it's quite the popular feature in the game. However, since I live in a huge European city, there are many players to compete with in order to secure a spot at these gyms. The reason I'm telling you all of this is to let you know why in the world would I brave a cold winter of my metropolitan city at 3 a.m. You see, it's not just that I'm stupid, it's also because I know most folks are asleep, which in turns allows me to quickly defeat all the Pokemon in the gyms and place my own. I have been doing this for a few months, and I have been quite successful. So tonight the routine was the same. Got dressed, got my coat, my scarf, and my black leather gloves. I went out and made my way to the first of the 3 gyms in my area that I usually conquer in the game. It's actually quite fascinating to observe the people that wander the city at these hours. Well, tonight I was going to meet a special guy. I arrived at my first gym, which is a smallish street that curves to the right for quite a stretch. I emptied it and placed my own Pokemon inside. Afterwards, I lingered around the area, taking off a glove to scratch my hand, but overall, just managing the game and looking things up. Some cars go by, and that's when I see him. This guy, clearly over 180 centimeters, making his way down the street. Now, these are just my country standards, but everything about him screamed, "Thug, ready to knife you." Sporting a black cap at night, concealing his face with the shadow. Padded black jacket with dirty blue jeans and rip-off Timberland boots. My immediate reaction was to keep it cool and neutral and just calmly place my cell phone back in my pocket. As he passed me, he gave me the "What the F you looking at?" look, and I couldn't help but give back a small sideways glance as I put my gloves back on my hand. I started walking towards the next gym, which happened to be the same direction he was walking towards, and he, to my surprise, started speeding up. Then he pulled out his cell phone and tried to phone someone. This immediately reminded me of my girlfriend, as this is a common tactic she uses when she feels she's being followed by strangers. Whoever he tried to phone, however, did not pick up. He looked back at me, keeps walking, increasingly faster. He switches sides and allows the parked cars to get between me and him, and then abruptly he stops. He turns around and asks, "Hey friend, you know where I can find the transportation at this hour?" I'm awkwarded out and freaked out at the same time. So without even looking at him, I just said, "At this hour?" only an Uber. He started walking only when I walked past him. Then it hit me. From my perspective, he was a thug-looking dude that could have very well tried to rob me and potentially harm me. But from his perspective, I'm a 171 centimeter dude in his mid-20s that, for some reason, decided to pocket his phone the moment he went past. Then gave him a sideways, "What the F are you looking at?" glance as he put his black leather gloves on and started following him, with not a single person awake around, looking like a hitman or a serial killer. As anxious as I was, he must have been terrified enough to try to phone someone, or pretend to, and then initiate dialogue with a total stranger at 3 a.m., just to be sure that I wasn't psycho about to knife him. We walked together in the same direction for about 10 minutes after that without looking or talking to one another. Just two awkward guys who did not want to meet one another ever again. So, thug guy, I won't follow you like a serial killer, and you won't meet me ever again. My mom was frantically trying to stop me from swinging around the pink lightsaber that I found in her bedroom drawers. That is, until I swung it at her and her headless body fell to the ground. The Night I Learned Not to Sneak Out by Muskie Bam. To start this off, I like to give a bit of context. This happened 4 years ago. I am a girl, and at the time this happened, I was 12 going on 13 in just a month or two. The friend I mentioned in this story was 14 at the time. The friend, Sally, who I was staying with that night, was quite a bit older than me. At least at the time, the 2 years age gap was quite big. I was about to start my second year of middle school, whereas Sally should have been about to begin her sophomore year of high school. I met her in the beginning of my first year at my new school. She was older than the other kids in our grade and was considered one of the popular kids. And I think that was what drew me to her first. We became fast friends, and before we knew it, we were spending every single weekend together. Seriously, every single weekend. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. It was your typical Friday night. We carpooled to her family's apartment after school. I've always been a picky eater, so when her family had dinner, I didn't eat with them. I just snacked on the Pop-Tart that I had stowed away in my backpack in case they ordered something I wouldn't eat. Something to note is that her family was pretty religious. I wouldn't go as far as to say they were fanatic, but they didn't allow their kids to watch horror movies or anything that was rated PG or older. It didn't stem from the desire to protect them from anything inappropriate. Sally's mom had an irrational fear that scary movies had satanic messages. We asked to watch The Purge, and her mom obviously said no. After some negotiation, she agreed to let us watch Hunger Games instead. After the movie, Sally and I went to hang out in her room. She put on some music, and being the age we were, we gave each other makeovers. By the end of it, we looked much older than just 12 and 14. This part of the night is when things started to seem off to me. Sally wasn't the most positive influence. Despite being my best friend at the time, she was manipulative and got off on putting me down. She had a habit of talking to men online and lying about her age. Sally showed me some texts between her and the man she was talking to. I couldn't give you an exact recount of them, but they consisted of him trying to convince her to meet up with him, and just the usual things you expect from a creep online. According to him, he was 19, tall, and blonde with soulful blue eyes. Once I saw the texts, I asked if she had a picture of him. Something didn't sit right with me after seeing the messages. She showed me what he looked like, and he was very clearly not 19. This man was at least 40 and looked like he lived in his mom's basement. Then we got a call from him. Sally answered without hesitation, and when I heard the voice on the other end of the call, I felt like I was going to get sick. "You're so pretty. Why don't you come meet me?" he asked. Sally said that she couldn't because she was spending the night with a friend. The mention of that sparked his interest, and then he proceeded to try and ask us both to meet him. Sally, lacking any common sense, said yes. Thus began her plan for us to sneak out and walk 15 blocks to meet him in a deserted McDonald's parking lot. I didn't want to go. I was raised on stories of what happens to teenage girls who meet random men from the internet in person. But after adamant pleading from Sally that she didn't feel safe going by herself, I agreed. We took our phones with us for the walk. I had a kitchen knife stuffed in my bra in case something were to happen and I needed to defend myself. The route we had to take to get there didn't have many street lamps, and there weren't any houses. We were surrounded by trees on both sides of us. When we got to the parking lot, the only car parked nearby was a black beat-up 2000 Toyota Corolla. The car was still running when we got there, and from what we could tell, there was more than one person inside. The man from the picture got out of the front passenger seat and left the door open behind him before approaching us. I turned my flash on so I could see, and he was obviously on something. I couldn't tell you what kind of drug it was for the life of me, but his eyes were so wide and they looked like they were about to pop out of his head. He was jittery and kept twitching. I became very conscious of how big he was. Maybe 6'2", around 280 pounds. For reference, my friend and I did not look our age, even without makeup. I'm about 5'2". My friend was pretty tall, probably about 5'6", 5'7". We were both significantly smaller than him. The man reached out for us and caught my friend by the arm. I went to get my knife as quickly as I could, and that's when I saw his friend getting out of the car. He invited us back to his car and offered us booze and drugs. But after seeing my knife and that I was ready to call the police, he released my friend. I took Sally's arm and ran faster than I ever had in my entire life. We took the long way home to avoid them finding out where we lived in case they were following us. Once we got there, her family was still sound asleep. We locked all the doors, closed the blinds, and blocked him on everything. There wouldn't be any sleeping that night. We were constantly peeking out the window, and to our dismay, the same Toyota was circling around her apartment building. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I never mentioned any of this to my parents out of fear of getting grounded or in trouble. I'm 16 now, and they still have no clue. I still get nervous when I see a car similar to that one from that night. As for Sally, Her parents never found out either. We agreed never to speak about it again. Thankfully, she moved into a new house just a few weeks after that happened. Safe to say, Sally and I haven't spoken in 3 years. She was ticked at me for ruining her night, and our friendship didn't last for long after that. We had a pretty bad falling out, but looking back on it now, it was definitely for the better. So, to Sally, thank you for teaching me a very valuable lesson and making me realize that some people are best just left alone. And to the man and his friend who tried to prey upon 2 young girls, let's not ever meet again. When I found a body while out on a hike, it wasn't the body that scared me. It was the fact the body looked just like me. I hope you enjoyed these stories this spooky, scary Sunday. If you did, then hit that like button and make sure it feels it. Remember to tell me what you think down below. I love reading your comments. If you want to help this channel, there's a few different ways. First, subscribe and turn that pretty little bell into all notifications. Though I have heard everyone loves mugs, and I have merch now. 2 different links for 2 different price points. If you want early access and a few other bonuses, check out my Patreon. But most importantly, thank you for watching. Sleep tight, and I hope 42 doesn't bite.